When I was 10 years old, my parents had an old wooden bookcase with moldy books stuffed everywhere in them. I knew that this was the only strange place in the house that I didn't really explore because the books were in Spanish and I couldn't read Spanish at the time. I found a long white book that had pictures of El Salvador, my native land. It was extremely graphic, showing images of soldiers aiming guns at campesinos, pits where there were dead bodies, mothers crying over graves, and old buildings crumbling and decaying. I was very young when I left El Salvador. I couldn't really remember it too well, but looking at these photographs, I distinctly heard helicopters in the background and recalled images of green fields and old dirt roads. My parents didn't really talk about our lives there. I think they wanted to wait until we were old enough to understand the magnitude of the war. However, there were the rallies. My parents are activists. My father was a professor and my mother a university student when they decided to leave El Salvador. In the 1980s, when the war was taking the lives of hundreds of Salvadorians by the U.S.-backed government, my parents, like many others, arrived in D.C. to protest against the injustice. Every weekend, we went back to a stony cold church where my parents would organize with others, attend vigils, community meetings, and work on banners and posters to communicate the horrors that were happening back home. I didn't realize it at the time, but my mother was instilling in me a sense of self-worth, of standing up for myself and what I believed in. That sense of self-worth was put to the test at the end of my senior year. I was sitting in my high school counselor's office, looking at a brown carpet and thinking how excited I was to be graduating. I was all ready to talk about my love of oceanography and that earth science was what I wanted to do. But he said, and I will never forget, that he didn't think I could get into a state university, that I was better suited for community college. Though I had considered it for financial reasons, to have my counselor think that I couldn't go to the University of Maryland was insulting. I had the grades, the extracurricular activities, and wonderful teacher recommendations. It was at that moment, in that room with the ugly carpet, that I made the decision to never settle for less and to never let people underestimate my intellectual capacity. Later, when I told my mother what had happened, she stressed that I would fight real battles in life and not to worry about the cosmetic ones. In the years that followed, I continued to experience discrimination in many forms. Coming from a diverse community of Silver Spring, it was a culture shock to be the only Latina in my graduating class at the University of Maryland. As a woman, in the field of science, I continued to be the minority. However, from my mother's experience, I have learned not to let these restraints define who I am. Whatever challenges I see in life, whatever discrimination and stereotypes I face, it is her strength of character and belief in me and my potential that enables me to succeed.